Well, I don't know if this is working or not. Okay, it is. All right, well, good evening. Good evening. Uh, there seems to be quite a bit of a time delay from what YouTube shows and what I'm showing, so I'm not 100% sure if this is going out. Um, Maybe we can, looks like it is. Let me cover that up. So, good evening. This is episode 4. Hopefully, we can keep this moving along. I like doing it. We'll just have to wait and see. Somebody says, "Oh, Patriot Grease Monkey sounds good, awesome. Thank you for letting me know that." So, this week we have a new background. With the help of Race Part Solutions and Go Racing Parts. They're two companies that I use extensively. So if you need AN fittings, mandrel stainless or aluminum, 90s, 180s, any kind of V-band, stainless steel or aluminum, merge flanges for turbochargers and coolant lids, gas tank lids, stuff like that. Those guys are the places to go to. You'll see their banners on a lot of the NPK and Street Outlaw guys, and really great products. I've been using them probably almost 18 years now. So, and great product. Give them a call. Let them know that you heard it from me. And Go Racing Parts. So if you've watched some of my engine build videos, you'll see that the engine parts came from Go Racing Parts. Now, I didn't get them for free. I pay for them just like everybody else. But Dale and his crew down there are really good guys, and they get the right parts for you in a timely manner. And what can I say? When you have engine parts and they come when they're supposed to, it's great. So again, if you need engine parts, give Go Racing Parts a call. Let them know that you heard it from me. That's awesome. I really hope you guys check them out. They good products, both companies. I couldn't hardly build any vehicles without their stuff. So give her a couple more minutes here, so you get a couple more people come on the stream. Don't have a huge stuff to talk about, so maybe we can get some stuff going in the chat. Another side note, next Tuesday, being the Orlando Speed World have private testing on Tuesday, I will be there. So I am going to try to go live at 6 p.m. At least to say hello, show what we're doing, and see what's going on. Like that way, if somebody's going on to the channel to see at 6 p.m., they'll see something. So I won't be able to show a lot because we're racing the grudge car or running the grudge car, so I can't show you what we're doing. But depending on where we are in setup, or maybe if we're close to getting to the starting line, we can stream till we can make a hit, and you guys can see the car go down the track. That might be fun. So let me know in the comments if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. So this week, let's see, what did I do this week? We had interested while working on the Vega. Enjoy this. Thanks, Ryan. Patriot Grease Monkey, no. The last update I got from the council member, and if anybody wants to know, you can go to Palm Beach County Commissioners and look up Sarah Baxter. She is in division or whatever it is, group 6. she's the one that's heading this. You can go to her page and you can join her mailing list, and then you can get up-to-date listings when we get everything. I haven't talked to Madeline Marconi in a while, but they were supposed to be putting together a maybe a 6 or 10 person from the racing community to kind of have input and talk about what's going on. And I don't know where they're at with that. I know that the public has until, I think it is the beginning of October, to submit plans and forget what it's called. There's 3 initials for it, but basically it is for you to submit your bid to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do with the property, this is what I'm going to build, this is how we're going to make it happen. And then the county will go through those in October and award somebody that is ready for it, and then they will, then they can start the building process. As far as I know, in the town hall meeting, she said, I believe that most of the hoops for zoning and all that kind of stuff are already finished. There was some discussion about possibly getting the county to help with the demucking process for the land. I don't know how much it needs to be demucked, but they're definitely looking forward to helping that out, and we'll go from there. Yeah, Mike, I knew it was you. I just giving you your listing, but yeah, that Patriot Grease Monkeys, Mike from that used to work with me at DNR. Glad to have you on. So that's the biggest news I know about the PBIR right now. I know that Baxter did say at the town meeting that they had quite a few people that were showing interest, so that's a good sign. So and they're going to get the land for free, basically $1 a year with like a 50-year contract. So whoever does end up with the racetrack, they're going to get $40 million worth of property to use for no cost. So that's pretty cool. I had a couple little projects we worked on this week, or I worked on. I always say we. I don't know why I do that, but it's just me. Except for on Saturday. I got some friends that come over on Saturday and help out. But I built a 417 LS motor for a buddy of mine, Mike, and we built the engine. I didn't get video on it. And he lives up in Ocala now, so it's going in I think it's a 66 Chevelle. So he came down last Thursday, and I was just helping him finalize some of the wiring and stuff. And we did get it running on Monday morning. I had a couple issues. We'll talk about that in a minute. And been working on the 69 Camaro. Got the wheelwood brakes on the front. I've got the QA1 coilover set up in the front. We did get a new accessory mid-mount from Holly. This one is polished, so that looks really nice on the car. I got the Hydro Boost in it with a mount from Pros Tuning. Appreciate those guys helping me out with that. And I'm rebuilding the rear end on that. I did not get any video on that for this week. I'll get some. I got some video, but I didn't get anything for the show. So we're getting that going. I got seats in for the Vettehawk. I'm gonna give a little show a couple little things on the Vettehawk that are coming. I'm not done with the part 2 video yet, but people have asked, so I was gonna show a little bit. And of course, we're working on Leo's 4200 turbo motor. I got the cylinder heads completely done, and I started blueprinting some of the short block. I got the oil squirter to the thrust finished, and that's all in and everything. And we got the bearing drilled where the oil is going to come through from the squirter, so that'll flood the thrust, so we don't have any issues there. So that's going to be coming up. I'll get some pictures for. Well, it'll be in 2 weeks because next week I'll be at the track. So, but we'll get videos coming up on that, and that's pretty good there. So let me show you some stuff on. This is Mike's engine and laptop. So, and we were working on it so hard and had a lot of stuff to get done that I really didn't get any good video of that. I apologize, but it's a 417 it's LS3. I think it's 10 over with a 4-inch stroke crank from CNC Motorsports. That was Mike purchased his own parts on that, so that's why it doesn't have Go Racing parts in it, which I would have preferred. But anyway, it's going to be a nitrous system car with 4L80 in it. So we were trying to get the car running. We got all the wiring connected. He didn't have the proper throttle body, so I cheated and did the TPS learn with a different throttle body, and we zeroed out the air temp correction because it didn't have an air temp sensor, and but we got it all working, got the fuel pumps running and everything, and it wouldn't start. We cranked it over, got oil pressure and everything, and it wouldn't start. So I did a system log. It has a Dominator in it, which the beauty of a Dominator and HP computers, you can do a system log, which basically will give you a lab scope picture of the crank and cam sensor and where relation they have to each other. Well, we noticed it didn't have crank sensor signal. So we did some investigation, ohmed out wires, checked the 5-volt ref, checked ground, make sure that the shield ground wasn't compromised to any of the other circuits, and everything kept checking out. We played around with air gap to the crank trigger and just couldn't seem to get it to do anything. So after thinking about it for a while, I kind of had a dummy moment and said, wait a minute, didn't I just do a video about a year ago about using the MSD tester to test ignition signals? So I used that, and sure enough, we got trigger, which then that really threw me crazy, because if the MSD tester is sending RPM and the computer is reading it and it's pulsing the injectors and it's turning the fuel pump on, then why is that not working when we have the crank sensor plugged in? So we went after air gap again, and I actually mutilated a sensor until I could get the sensor to touch the wheel. Still not working. Really had me scratching my head. And it was getting late in the day, and so we called it on Saturday. And then, of course, in the middle of the night, light bulb went off in my brain, and I thought, I better check the pin orientation at the crank trigger. And sure enough, the power wire and the trigger wire were swapped. So swapped them, the A and C, swapped them, and hit the key, and boom, fired right off. So we went and got it filled up with coolant on Monday, and we got it running, and yay, we got it done. But it was experience, and just goes to show, no matter how much you do this, sometimes you can get caught, trying to think that it's more complicated than what it really is. You always need to go back to basics. That seems to always be the first place, and most of the time where the problems are. So, but we got Mike's motor running, and then he took the car back up to Ocala, and then in a couple weeks he's going to come back down when he has a proper throttle body, and we can finish hooking up all the right sensors, and then we'll get some tuning done on it, and I'll get some video on it then, and we'll go from there. So that was one thing, and then I can show you some pictures. This is kind of where we're at with the Vettehawk right now. That's what it wants to be when it's done. But here, this is a little slideshow I put together. So there's all the body parts that I brought down from I ordered from Harry's Glass, which came out of the original molds from the Decon race car company. And of course I couldn't wait. I had to use self tappers and hung the body on the car to see what it was going to look like. I'm pretty stoked about the way it's going to look. With 315s all the way around, it's going to be really nice. And of course, with the motor that I'm building for it, that's going to be an awesome ride. Should make a great autocross car. So for the people that don't know or haven't seen the part 1 video on the channel, I've got a 78 Buick Skyhawk that I purchased on in South Carolina on my way down from another video I was doing when I drove a Olnick box truck, vintage race car hauler from Ohio to Florida. So that was a while back, but that's in the channel videos. I purchased the car. It was just a shell. And then I made part 1 where I actually took a Corvette C4. It was a 1989 Corvette chassis. It was already stripped off. Somebody had made a Vett car out of it. And I narrowed the frame rails so that the Monza / Skyhawk body would fit on it. And that's what the part 1 video is. Me prepping the frame, prepping the body, putting the two together, and that's where we ended that part 1. So part 2 will be with the new body on it. I had to actually shift the body a little bit when the car was fully was unsprung. The wheels actually moved forward, so where I thought the body was centered over the rear wheels, it was not. So in part 2, I make dummy struts to get the car to sit wherever I want, fit with no springs in there, so that way it's in a static position where I want it. And at this point, I made the lower control arms on the front level, and I made the dry shafts on the rear end level. So then I had to move the body back, and then I trimmed the front fenders, and now the wheelbase matches the body wheelbase matches the chassis. So that's going to be a really good project coming up. I need to get more time in the shop so I can get some work on it, but I'm clearing some space. Once it's inside, I can get a lot more done to it. We're going to do put the engine and transmission in for mock-up, and then I got to start building floorboards and roll cage and all that stuff. And that leads me to the next thing is I had to get seats, because to get everything to fit in the car, I wanted to make sure that the seats weren't going to put, let me rephrase that. I want to channel the body over the car, and I wanted to make sure that the seats weren't going to be too tall and the driver position wasn't be too high to interfere with the roof or the roll cage, because the vehicle will be getting a roll cage. So I got these race-equipped seats from Holley Products, Holley Performance, and they are a full containment seat. And the reason I chose the full containment is because I want to drive the car on the street without a helmet, and I don't want to knock my head on the roll cage in case somebody, in case you get into an accident or something, somebody T-bones the car, or you run off the road, or whatever the case is. But you don't want, you got the halo roll cage around the top of the perimeter of the roof, and I don't want to knock my head on it and get a concussion. So I chose to go with the full containment seats. I got 2 of them going in the car, so that will be good. So now that I have the seats, as soon as I can make a spot in the shop, we'll start getting the floors and stuff built in it, and we'll keep moving along. So keep an eye on the channel for more videos on that. Hopefully I'll get some time and get working on that thing so we can get them out and let everybody see where we're going with that project. So that was the main things that I had to show tonight for the live stream. I hope people are getting something out of the live stream. You talked the first episode. Somebody brought up some stuff about Excel fuel injection. We got talking about fuel injection for a good portion of the show. I'm not 100% sure what we talked about on episode 2. On episode 3, we were talking about some of the projects in this shop, and brain fart. So we got talking about Hydro Boost and pedal ratios, brake pedal ratios, and I gave everybody a tidbit about calling Willwood for correct master cylinder size. One thing I didn't mention about that was you have to make sure whenever you put a master cylinder on, whether it's manual brake, power brake with a booster, or Hydro Boost, is that there needs to be almost nothing, but there has to be some air gap between the push rod and the master cylinder. We worked on a Ford F-100 a couple weeks ago, put a fuel injection setup on there. I think that's what we talked about on episode 2. And on that truck, the master cylinder did not have an air gap. So the person that put the master cylinder on actually drew the master cylinder in with the push rod pushing on the master cylinder. So what ended up happening is the customer thought he had a hung up caliper, and come to find out the push rod was too long and the brakes were on. We loosened them up, brakes released. So then that had a little adapter inside the master cylinder, as a lot of the aftermarket ones do. And so I put it in a lathe and I trimmed about 100 thousandths off of it. Believe it or not, it was that bad. But when it was all done, brakes were released, no more problems. So that's another thing you want to check. I just put the Hydro Boost on the 69 Camaro, and sure enough, when I pushed the master cylinder up with the Willwood master cylinder with the little button that they stick in there, it's tight. So I had to take 50 thousandths off that one to make it clear. But just another thing that always be cautious. You want to be able to push that master cylinder right up against where you're tightening down to by hand, and not with a lot of effort, to make sure that it's not holding the brakes on. I see Ryan posted the 315 square will be badass. Yes, I'm hoping so. If you look in the channel, I'm digressing here, but if you look on the channel, there's a lot of video of me autocrossing the 1950 Chevy fleet line that I had. I called it the Fitty. I had a blast autocrossing that car, but after a couple years going to LS Fest and some Good Guys events and finishing mediocre with a car that had pretty good amount of work done to it. In fact, that motor had the 5.7 in it that I bought from Mike, Patriot Grease Monkey. I bought that motor core from him and built it. But anyway, I wanted something that was a better autocross car. So that's how the Vettehawk came up. I kind of came back from LS Fest last year and said, what chassis have really good suspensions that don't need a lot of upgrade, or if you're going to upgrade them, make them even that much better. And the Corvette C4 platform was one of the front runners. Another thing was I wanted to stay with stuff older than 1990. That way it stayed in the vintage classes. So as luck would have it, I had a 89 Corvette Vet cart chassis that I bought from a friend. It was a really good deal, and I figured, I'll throw a motor and training it, and we'll go do a bunch of donuts and stuff like that, and do some autocross, and then I'll sell it. Well, then PBIR closed up. That eliminated our local autocross track, and I just never got around to it. So at that point, I said, okay, I've got a chassis, and it's got really good suspension, but I don't want a Corvette body, and this car doesn't have a body, so I don't want to buy a body to put on it. So I got thinking about it, and I used to have a Chevy Monza fastback 2+2, and it was a fun little car. And when I got looking at the specs, the wheelbase was within an inch, and I'm like, well, that would be pretty cool. And then doing more research, I found the Decon wide body kits when they were raced in IMSA GT in the 70s, and then found the molds at Harry's Glass, and it just, all the pieces started fitting in the puzzle. So it just made it kind of a no-brainer. So it'll be pretty good. For the people that haven't heard in the past shows, I'm building a 427 LS. It's a LS3 that we put dart in sleeves, so it's got a 4-125 bore with a 4-inch stroke, and it's going to be we're going to put a 4L80 trans behind it. It'll be hooked up through my Dominator Holly computer, which will allow for paddle shift, and we're going to put nitrous on it. I want to do some drive and drag stuff. We're definitely going to do LS Fest and some Good Guys stuff, and when we get a new racetrack here in the county, hopefully they're going to bring autocross back. So I'll do some autocrossing there too. And there are some other groups, Gulf Coast Cruisers or Gulf Coast Autocross. They have a club over there. They autocross in Fort Myers, and there's a group up in Central Florida, and there's a group in I think in Port St. Lucie or Vero. So there's some around, nothing as close as PBR was. But that's basically what we're going to do. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to get that thing done. So we were talking about the brakes, and yeah, so we got that. I wanted to put that point across. And something else to touch on about the brakes. I know I'm kind of jumping around here. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can follow. Hydro Boost. You have to check make sure you have the right pump when you're using Hydro Boost, because now you're using Hydro Boost and steering. So if you have too small of a power steering pump, the volume won't be able to keep up. It'll give you some issues. And another thing with power steering and rack and pinions. A lot of people will put a rack and pinion front suspension on their car, like a Mustang 2 type deal or something, and they get this real twitchy steering. That's because the pump has a lot of volume. So they do make True Turn and Speedway, and a lot of people, you just Google it, but they make restrictors for the power steering pump so that you can slow it down. It's a big problem in street rods because everybody uses the Mustang 2 front end, and then they put a small block Chevy or a big block Chevy with a Type 1 or Type 2 GM Signal power steering pump, and then the steering gets super twitchy at high speed. So that's another tidbit I can throw out there, that they do make a restrictor, and that will change the amount of power assist you get in the steering. So just a couple things that are coming off the top of my head. So hopefully they help out people at some point, and I kind of moved through that stuff pretty quick. So hopefully people were able to follow along. I don't know if anybody's out in the chat and has any questions of anything. I know I downloaded a bunch of stuff on the Excel Facebook page. Some guys were looking for some software there, and I did post it in the group that if anybody needed wiring schematics, I got a lot of the original schematics that show, like, if you want a fan kit or a lockup TCC control or any of that kind of stuff. If Excel made a part number kit that was a wiring harness, sub harness, and stuff like that, I've got a lot of those instructions where you can make your own kit, your own harness. And then Mike says, I see people adding and removing sump tanks for the fuel to control slosh. Would that work on off-road 4x4 application? It would, but I've got a better trick for you. Holley makes a gas tank sock called Hydromat, and this thing is phenomenal. They originally designed it for NASCAR, and they have them in multiple different sizes. And on the YouTube, or on the Holley's website, if you go to Hydromat, there is YouTube videos where they demonstrated it at the SEMA show, where they took a mat that was a 1 foot by 1 foot mat and had one corner of the mat in fuel. Actually, they used water in the display, and the rest of the mat was out of it, and it still drew the water, the liquid, through it. I don't know what kind of particles this thing is, but it will always draw the liquid before it will draw air. So you could put in the Fitty. I had a 3x10 strip, and that was in a 26-gallon fuel tank. I did have 2 baffles, but they were 12 inches apart. So basically, the center of the fuel tank was like 20 inches by 12 inches by 8 inches high, and I had that 3x15 hydromat in that car. Never ever got fuel slosh, and I actually ran it down to where it had less than it had probably about 2 quarts of fuel in it, and the car was still running. It was starting to sputter then, but incredible product. Every now and then they'll have clearance sales. I got lucky. I got a clearance sale, and I got one of the NASCAR Craftsman truck mats. So it will lay in a 13-gallon fuel cell, and it covers the entire bottom of the cell. I'm going to use that for the Vettehawk because I want to be able to. In both the Fitty and the Vettehawk, I'm putting a large fuel tank in it because I want to cruise. And running E85, you're using about 30% more fuel volume than you would with pump gas. So I want to have the capacity. So with that mat, that'll be the base shape of the tank, and then it'll go upwards and outwards from there. And that way, fuel slosh will be a thing of the past. But besides the sump in the tank, yes, Mike, you're right. You can do a sump tank. We ran that in a IMSA car back in the 90s, where the main fuel cell had a large volume, low pressure pump that pumped into a 1-gallon can, and then out of that 1-gallon can, the feed to the fuel injection came off of that, and then at the top of the tank there was a return back to the main tank. So the high volume, low pressure pump continued to keep that 1-gallon surge tank completely full, and then the EFI pump sucked off of that, it was always full, so there was no problems. So that does work. Companies like ATI make plastic boxes with inlets on 2 sides or all 4 sides with a ball bearing or a marble in it, so that when the fuel sloshes to one way, that marble, that valve will open and let it fill that container, and then when the fuel and all the other ones would close off, and vice versa as it moves back and forth. That was another in-tank fuel sump that was produced back in the 90s and the 2000s. They're still available as far as I know. But a sump tank would definitely work. If you're going to do like a rock crawler or something like that, a surge tank would really be good. But, I think if you check out the Hydromat, they're a little pricey, but I think they'll work really well. My brother, who builds jet skis for racing, and my nephew races them, he's now using the Hydromats in the race boats, because they were even in a fuel tank made for off-road, made for going out in the ocean, jumping and doing all kinds of stuff. They were still getting some fuel sloshing in that, and so we're now running. We had to put a bigger pump in them anyway because we're running E85 in the boats, and so with that and the addition of the Hydromat, all of his problems have gone also, and that would be a vehicle that would cause a lot of fuel separation, aeration, and slosh, because my nephew, I think his boat will run 90 miles an hour, and they're racing in the ocean, so it's kind of like a motocross track that you don't know where the jumps are going to be until you get there. So you can imagine what the fuel must go through in the fuel tank, going over waves and turning and doing everything that they do with that. So again, that's another thing that we use the Hydromat for, and it's been perfect. And if you are looking for a EFI fuel pump system, not to make this a Holley sales pitch, but Holley does make a lot of pump kits to go into a factory tank, and mostly those systems will come with a small Hydromat, because they realize it you're putting EFI on a car that, say, a '63 Chevy, it doesn't have any baffling in the tank. So with this fuel pump module that they make, will go into that tank, and they use a hydromat for that purpose. The other thing on the hydromat, which they'll show in their video, and I will say, with anything that you're EFIing or doing a return fuel system, you always want your return to go on top of your sock, or if you have a surge box or whatever you're using, a baffle in the tank, you always want the fuel the return to go into there. And another key is to put the return all the way to near bottom of the tank. So your tank is 8 inches deep, your return line should go back into the tank and be 7 inches. And the reason being is when the fuel is coming out of the return into fuel, it won't cause aeration. If you have the return coming into the top of the tank with nothing, no tubing or anything on the inside of the tank, now your fuel is coming in and spraying across the top of the fuel level layer, and that creates aeration. So as the fuel level gets lower, the aeration gets closer to your pickup, and then that is another cause of fuel slosh or fuel problems in a return fuel system, because it'll get that aeration, even though it may not be sloshing, but if it's full of air and full of air bubbles in the fuel, it's still going to feel the same way when you're driving down the road. Mike says he's going to look into that. The hydromat seems to be the best bet for 44-gallon Suburban tank. Yeah, that's a big tank. Yeah, and the other thing is Tanks Inc., which most of the tanks that Holley sells, they do make EFI tanks now for a lot of vehicles, and a lot of those will have a EFI style basket in the middle of the tank for them. So that's something else to check out. The tanks are pretty cheap. Obviously, you can get crazy spending. If you buy an EFI tank and you buy a hydromat and you buy a good pump, and it can add up, but sometimes those are money well spent so that you don't have issues when you get the vehicle done. Nothing worse than getting the vehicle all done and then test driving it and realizing that there are more things that need to be fixed. So that's just one of the mindset I always take when I'm building vehicles. I have had people tell me that they feel that when I'm building their car that I'm building as if I was building it for myself, and there's a lot of truth to that. I will try to sway my customers on any projects that we're doing, customers, friends, anybody. I try to sway them with information that I have to offer, and it's from going through all this, where you put something together and then you've got problems, and then you have to go back and readdress and recheck things like that. So sometimes it's best to spend a little bit more money and get it right the first time. But also keep an eye on stuff. Like I said, I bought that big hydromat on clearance from Holley. I don't remember the specifics, but I think that mat was like $600. It's so big, and I think I got it for $200. And so I jumped on it. It's bigger. It's a bigger mat than I needed for my project, but when I seen that size mat available for $200, I'm like, that's a no-brainer, because I'm definitely going to make this car take some serious G load. So I definitely don't want to have any issues with the fuel starvation. And this motor is going to be 12.5 to 1, so pretty high compression. So the last thing I want to do is run it lean through a corner or something, or if I'm doing a drive and drag and I'm spraying it and it's leaving the line pretty hard. Again, you don't want fuel starvation and potentially damage the engine because of a fuel issue. So I thought it was a ounce of protection. Since I got to build the fuel tank anyway, it'll be kind of a no-brainer. And of course, on that fuel tank, I'll be using a Race Parts Solutions billet lid. They make some really great lids. Little throw at them. So that's some tidbits about fuel systems. I don't know if I mentioned on the other episode 2 when we were talking about that Ford F100. Something that I do on all my builds now that are basically 550, 600 horsepower ish and less, especially if they're NA, no power adders. I use a inline fuel regulator, and that way I only have to run one line to the front of the car. You don't have to run a return line or anything. So on a lot of the classics that I build, I will use the stock 3/8 line and put AN fittings on the ends of it, or use Earl's or Russell push lock, or Fragola also push lock hose where the rubber would go, so it's pressure, it's rated for EFI, and then I will run the regulator in at the tank and only have one line going to the front of the car. Another little tidbit to make a plumbing EFI car a lot easier. So your snipers, your terminators, stuff like that, LS swaps. If you're not going to make it over 550 horsepower, I mean, you probably could get away with more, but I kind of use that as my breaking point. If it's near 600 horsepower, then I'll probably put a return system in. But if it's less than that, the manufacturers are doing it to even the Hellcats and the ZR1s and stuff, Corvettes and stuff. They're running a single returnless system. So it can be done. I don't want to, I don't have the engineering accounts that GM and Dodge, Chevy and Dodge has for doing that. So I will lean the way I do, 550 and more, put a return system in. But on the lesser ones, and I know a lot of people will put, especially on LS conversions, you can do the Corvette fuel filter, which has a regulator built in. I got a better way of doing it, in my mind anyway. Holley makes a fuel filter with the regulator built in, so it's got 3 ports. It's got an in, an out, and a return, and it's got the return built into it. But the thing I like about it is it's a serviceable filter, so you can pay $60, $70 for that, or whatever they cost for the GM fuel filter, which then, of course, you have to get quick connects of some sort to hook your hoses up to it, because it's made for GM quick connect. So whether you got to get a Fragola adapter to AN or a Fragola adapter to push lock, by the time you get done with it, it gets pretty pricey. But with the Holley filter that I use, they have a billet one, it's more money, and they have a cast one, it's a little less money, but I believe they're around $200 and you're done. Your filter can be taken apart and cleaned, or you can just replace the filter, and you can get them in either NPT pipe fittings or in ORB, which is AN with O-ring. So real easy to plumb in, and it works nice. It's a nice looking piece under the car, and just another little tidbit of things I do when I'm building cars. And the other thing I like about it is, like on a classic Chevelle or Camaro or whatever, you can use the factory lines to get the fuel to the front of the car. So it doesn't, when you look underneath the car, you don't have all these extra fuel hoses and stuff all routed around, and so I think it makes it look cleaner. So yeah, Mike says he works at a GM dealer, and they're using returnless on everything. So it would probably work on 700-800 horsepower. I just tend to, again, when I'm building a car, I want to use it, or I try to build it as if it was mine, and I just don't feel comfortable feeding that much fuel on a returnless system. So I just prefer to go the other way. But you're right, the manufacturers are doing it, so it must work. And there's a lot of those fuel pump modules I was talking about earlier that Holley produces to go into stock old car tanks. A lot of those have regulator built into them, so it's all internal in the tank. You don't even have to have a return line coming out, which makes it really easy for hooking up to an older car if you only have a pressure line coming out of the tank and that's it. So just something I do. So passing it along out there. That's all I want to do with this channel is pass along my knowledge to help people out. You guys have got projects. Everybody pretty much does, I think. Not many of us actually have vehicles that run, and so something. Hopefully, we'll run across something that you didn't think about, or that you did think about, and you wondered what would be the best bet, or whatever. And for the people that are going to watch this in replay later, put things in the comments if you got questions about anything automotive related or whatever, and I'll try to answer them. I don't know everything. I don't claim to, but I have been doing this for a long time, and I have school of hard knocks. I have learned a lot of things over the years, so I do have some pretty good tricks for some stuff, and the stuff that I don't, we could research together and we can figure it out. That's the whole thing about these lives, is I'm trying to have you guys, the viewers, feel like you're part of the channel. I most of the stuff I put on the channel is just stuff that I'm doing. I don't know what people really want to see or what have you. I just film. If I'm doing something, I'll film it if I think people would be interested in seeing it. But that being said, I'm not you, so I don't know what, I'm taking for granted what I think you want to see. So that's what we're trying to build here, is where everybody can have a say in what's going on. I would love down the road to actually maybe do a car build that us as a community decide what we want to do with it. What parts we want to use and stuff like that. Maybe we could, or maybe the community could come up with the overview of what we want to do. It's like, let's build a rat rod and let's do a Chevy, and stuff like that. So obviously, right now I have to get the Vettehawk done, and of course we have a couple builds that we're working on. We got the 69 or 68 Chevelle, Dave's car. I'm going to be wiring that up soon, so there'll be a video coming out on that. And there's a good point. I'm going to be making a video wiring this car. It's going to be a painless system with a vintage air, electric door locks, electric windows, a thruster. Got Excel brain on my brain. A Holly Terminator that's got a LS3 with a 4L80 behind it, so it's going to have throttle, trans control and engine control. So if anybody has any questions about what to do with a wiring schematic, put them in the chat or in the comments, and that way when I do that video, I can make sure that I include those pieces. One of the things that I will show, one of the things I try to do, is I try to make a chart or an overview of all the components that are in the car, so I can kind of figure out where things need to be. Usually with the painless or any of the other ones, mainly the painless. There's a couple other manufacturers out there. I don't have all the names off the top of my head, but they're made for end users, so they kind of put a lot of redundancies in the harnesses. That's fine, but I'm not going to need those. So what I do is I build my chart where I'm going to put all my products, and then I weed all the stuff that I don't need that's in the harness that comes in it, and weed that stuff out, and that way I can make it clean. I like when you look underneath the dash and it's all nice and tidy, and the looms are organized, and it doesn't look like a rat's nest. So make it easier for the next person. And plus the fact with writing notes and maybe even making a schematic when you're done. If the car is out of my area, so like next year we're going to make a cruise to Columbus, Ohio for the Good Guys show in July. So suppose somebody's doing a long trip cruise like that, or on Hot Rod Power Tour, and they end up having a electrical gremlin, whether a component goes bad or whatever. Being it's an aftermarket harness, it makes it a little tough for people to help you diagnose it because they don't really know what you did. So making a chart with a kind of a roadmap can be enlightening to somebody else that's following behind you to work on that. So that will be something. Like I said, if you have questions or thoughts about wiring, car wiring and stuff, leave it in the comments so we can make sure we get that in that video. It's not as scary as people think it is. You just have to have a game plan. You can't, even for myself, I can't work on it and then go away and come back and go away and come back. I got to kind of plan out a couple days and just stay on it and get it done. So with that being said, you got to have all your components and everything you're going to put in the car already with it. Like we're putting a power mirror that's going to have, I think it's got a camera and a compass and a temp gauge in it. So we need to have that in there so that we can, make sure all the wiring goes to that. And of course, I like to put USB ports, whether charging or communication to the radio and stuff like that, and mount them in the dash and stuff. So all that stuff, any of the little bells and whistles that you would want in the car, you kind of have to get that all figured out. If you are going to add stuff down the road, you can surely leave pigtails. Usually what I'll do is I'll break out of the main harness where I think the component will go, and I'll put a connector with however many wires that would be needed, and that way it's already terminated. All you have to do is bring in the unit that you're adding to it and put the wires in the appropriate connector and hook it back up, and you're good to go, and 90% of the wiring is already done. So that's kind of what we're going to do with that. Trying to think whatever else we're going to do here. I really enjoy everybody coming on. I see we're nearing the 7 o'clock point. I'm glad everybody was able to log in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Please feel free to leave comments in the chat or in the comments. I definitely want this to be a communication between us. I want you guys to feel like part of the channel. This isn't just me showing stuff. I don't, that's okay, but that's not what I want to do. I want this to be something that everybody gets something out of it. I get to hopefully put my knowledge on some type of recording channel. Wow, I'm really tongue-tied tonight. Content on the channel so that people 5-10 years from now can, if they got a problem and it's something that we're working with, maybe they can get the answer they needed. That would make me feel great. And then again, everybody that watches live or at this point in time, so that you guys can get stuff out of it. I kind of almost like teaching, but I'm not a teacher of any kind. Trust me. But this is kind of gives me an outlet to help out. If people see if I've been on Yellow Bullet or any of the like Excel on Facebook, I'm always, or any of the other Holly stuff. I don't answer as much on the Holly stuff because there's so many people on there. The questions are usually answered pretty quickly, but I love helping people out with getting to where they need to go with information. So if I have it, I will definitely give it. And with that being said, that brings me to Holly. As soon as I slow up a little bit, I definitely want to do a bunch of Holly videos. I've got 2 on the channel now that are kind of like quick tuning helps, and one's about IAC control and stuff like that. So I really want to, I think I want to do more like troubleshooting and stuff like that. So you have a problem, and maybe I might be able to give you a way of that will help you figure out the issue. Kind of like that crank sensor wiring connector issue we had with Mike Chevelle. So I'm definitely going to be doing a video on that when he brings the car back to me. But things like that, I definitely think that's going to be good. I'm going to do one on the firmware updating. Holly has one on their site. It's pretty good, but I almost think they move too fast. So I know for myself, I got to stop the video and try to get caught up to where they are, so that I can follow along. So we'll see. I'm gonna work on that. Again, if you guys have any questions or concerns or whatever about Holly tuning stuff or Holly fuel injection, leave a comment. Let me know, either on the lives or on the Holly content, the videos that are up there now, or when I put some more on there. Just leave the comments on there, and that way we can work through this. It's very possible when I'm doing these, because I'm doing fuel injection for a little while, that I may skip over something because I just do it every time and not even realize it, and it might be a key point that somebody might need. So really want people to leave comments and questions about that stuff, so I can make sure that the information is useful. I know Dan's going to be on. He's going to watch the show later tonight, and we've been working on his sniper, and one of the tech guys was actually able to help with a DXL stumble, so he got a good workaround. I didn't think about that workaround, and we're going to get together, and I'm going to help him with the acceleration fueling, and that should help that out. So I don't know if usually we're Dan and I just drive his car around. It's hard to make. I try to do some videos driving, but you can't see the laptop screen. It's really bad. So probably what I'll do is, I've got some data logs from his car. Maybe once I get the acceleration fueling done to where he's happy with that, maybe I'll just piece together a talking point on that and what we did and how we got to where we got. But that, I think he would agree the car was running pretty bad when he brought it to me, and I believe I've got it running 95%, 97%, and we don't have that much time in. I mean, I might have an hour and a half time tuning it. So it's just another thing that we got going on. So I think I've run out of things to talk about. We were mentioning future projects, and of course this is going to be way downstream because I've got so much stuff already in the burner. But working on Leo's 4200, I think I want to put one of them in something and make a straight 6 hot rod. I think that'd be pretty cool. So let me know what you guys think about that. I've got a couple of videos on our channel with Leo's car with the 6 cylinders, and Mike Burrell's dragsters. He's got a 6-cylinder dragster and a 4-cylinder dragster. I do some tuning on those cars. They're pretty cool. They're not ordinary, so that would be pretty good. And a buddy of mine, Calvin, has a bunch of a whole channel to 4200, so you can check him out also. His YouTube is Nivlac 57. It's Calvin backwards, Nivlac 57. So he's got a bunch of cool videos on his channel. So we kind of went over a lot of stuff. So once again, I want to remind everybody, next week I'm going to be testing the Grudge car to Smurf up at Orlando. So it's not going to be a typical live stream. I will go live, and I'm not 100% sure where we're going to be at 6 o'clock as far as whether we're getting the car ready to make a hit or we're making adjustments or whatever we're at. But we'll try to get on, and hopefully we can get good Wi-Fi at the track so we can stream, and hopefully we get lucky. Maybe it'll be at a point where we're ready to make a hit with the car, and I can show you guys the car going down the track live. Can't show the time, but we can show it live. So that being said, I see Whitehead says, "What's up, brother?" Not much, just doing another live stream. Hope everybody's enjoying it. And that's pretty much everything I can think of for today. Again, leave comments if there's something that you want to see or hear, and we'll just keep this thing rolling, and make it a really tight knit car group, truck group or whatever has a motor in it and burns fuel and makes noise and lays rubber. Gotta love it. I live for it. I've been very lucky in my life that I've been able to do this my whole entire life. I've never really felt I had a job. I've always had a play shop and was tinkering with cars and stuff. So really loved it. So once again, shout out to Race Parts Solutions, racepartsolutions.com. Go Racing Parts, go racingparts.com. If you have any components you need for building a car, as far as plumbing or any type of accessory, hot and cold turbocharged plumbing, air intakes, exhaust, headers, the V-bands, all that kind of stuff, full dealer with Fragola fittings, Race Parts Solutions is your place. And Go Racing Parts is your source for engine parts. So when you're building the engine that you need all the other parts for, check out Dale and his crew down at Go Racing Parts. They do a great job. So they gave me the logo so we could do this backdrop. Let me know what people think about the backdrop. I think it came out pretty cool. And if there's any comments, I keep saying comments, but it's all about comments, about the sound, the video, lighting. If anybody has anything to say about it, post it up. I'd love to hear it. So with that, we just about made it an hour, so I think we're going to call it a night. I hope everybody enjoyed it once again, and be ready to check out what we've got in store for next week. And I think that's going to be it. Good night.